Okay, so today we're going to dive into a story that honestly starts small with just one little girl, but it ends up revealing a huge global health crisis. We're going to follow Addie's battle to understand one of the biggest medical challenges we face today, why our antibiotics are starting to fail. Let's get right into it. So this is really the central mystery we're going to solve together. It all comes down to a young girl named Addie and this one question that totally stumped her doctors. How did a common, everyday infection, the kind kids get all the time, become a desperate battle for her life? All right, and this is where the story takes a really strange turn. So Addie gets sick with a bacterial infection. Totally normal. She gets the right medicine, antibiotics, and she starts improving, right? That's exactly what's supposed to happen. But then, the whole thing just flips on its head. She gets sicker, way, way sicker than before. That just shouldn't happen. To figure out why it did, we've got to first understand the invisible enemy she was up against. Okay, so our investigation starts with identifying the culprit, bacteria. These microscopic single-celled organisms that are, well, they're literally everywhere. And as we're about to find out, some of them have basically developed superpowers. Just think about this number for a second. 1/3. Yeah. The research shows that about 1/3 of all people, right now, are just walking around with potentially drug-resistant bacteria living on their skin. This isn't some far-off problem in another country. It is right here, right now. It could be on any of us. So where are these little guys hiding? I mean, pretty much everywhere you can think of. They're on the surfaces we touch all day long, at school, on the bus, at the hospital, the playground. It's almost certain that Addie came across her infection in one of these totally ordinary everyday places. And the fact that they're everywhere, well, that's a huge part of the problem. Now, to really get a handle on this challenge, we have to understand how bacteria multiply. And it is incredibly simple. They don't need a partner or anything like that. They just split themselves in two. It's a process called binary fission. So one becomes two, and those two become four. It's simple, it's clean, and it is terrifyingly efficient. And that simple process is unbelievably powerful. I mean, for a lot of common bacteria, they can double every 20 minutes. So let's do the math. You start with just one. 20 minutes later, you have two. An hour later, you've got 8. A few hours after that, thousands. This isn't just adding up. This is exponential growth. It's like a runaway train. This is the engine that drives an infection forward. Now, for decades, we've had this miracle weapon to fight back against this crazy growth: antibiotics. They've been amazing. But, as Addie's story is showing us, our miracle weapon has a really big and, frankly, a growing flaw. Which brings us right back to that big question, right? If bacteria are exploding in number, but we have these powerful drugs designed to kill them, why on earth didn't they just work for Addie? Why did she get worse? Well, the answer lies in a number you see all the time, but probably don't think twice about. You've definitely seen this before. It's on hand sanitizers, cleaning wipes, 99.9% effective. And I mean, it sounds amazing, doesn't it? It's almost perfect. But here's the thing. In the world of bacteria, that tiny, tiny gap between 99.9% and a full 100%, well, that's where the whole disaster starts. So what that really means is that almost all is not the same thing as all. Not even close. When an antibiotic goes to work, it's like a massive bomb going off. It wipes out the huge majority of the bacteria. But a few of them, the toughest, strongest, most stubborn ones, they survive. They're the leftovers, the survivors. And this is where the whole thing becomes this incredibly dramatic numbers game. It is a flat-out race between how fast we can kill the bacteria and how fast those few survivors can rebuild their entire army from scratch. All right, let's actually put some numbers on this. Imagine an infection starts with 1 million bacteria. You take your first dose of an antibiotic, bam, it's a huge hit. It kills 900,000 of them. But that still leaves 100,000 survivors. Okay, so you take the next dose, it takes out another 90%, but you're still left with 10,000. And even after a third dose, there are still 1,000 of them left. So you can see why you have to keep up the attack. But even this picture is missing one really crucial, really dangerous piece of the puzzle. Because what happens between those doses? What if those survivors aren't just sitting there waiting for the next hit? What if they're doing the one thing that bacteria do better than anything else? What if they're multiplying? And this, right here, this is the aha moment. This is the key to the whole thing. So at hour 0, a really strong antibiotic hits the infection. It knocks a million bacteria all the way down to just 100 survivors. And at this point, you're probably starting to feel better. But look what happens in the downtime. Those 100 survivors, they get to work. In just 1 hour, they become 800. An hour after that, it's over 6,000. By the time you're scheduled to take your second dose, maybe 4 hours later, their population has exploded back up to over 400,000. So yeah, the second dose knocks them back down again, but you can see the race is on. This is the reason why you have to finish the entire course of antibiotics.
Okay, so now we have all the clues. We have everything we need. Let's put it all together and finally solve the mystery of what happened to Addie.
This right here, this is the step-by-step playbook for how to create a super infection. It all starts with an antibiotic doing its job, but we don't let it finish. The moment you start to feel better and you stop taking the medicine, you've basically just run a training camp for the absolute toughest bacteria in your body. I mean, think about it. You've wiped out all their weaker competition and left them with all the space and resources they need to build a brand new, much, much stronger army.
So that moment when you start feeling better, it feels like relief, but it can be incredibly deceptive. You think the infection is gone, that you've won. But what's actually happening is that only the weakest bacteria are gone. The strongest ones are still in there, fighting, regrouping, and multiplying like crazy. The war is absolutely not over. And that's exactly what happened inside Addie. Those first few doses made her feel better, but they accidentally created an elite squad of survivors who then mounted that devastating comeback.
So we've figured it out. We get the mechanism. We see the terrifying math. We solved Addie's case. But the story really doesn't end there. Addie's battle is a huge warning sign for every single one of us. Because every time an antibiotic prescription is started but not finished, we're basically rolling the dice. We're playing a game of chance with creating another superbug. And so the real question this whole story leaves us with is, are we, with our own actions, creating the next Addie?